What are tariffs? Well, a tariff is a tax on imports from another country, usually in order to protect domestic businesses within that country. But let me explain how tariffs actually work. Here's country A and country B. Now imagine that you're in country A, and country A produces some type of product. We can call it A product. So they produce this product, and it costs $4 to produce a certain amount of that product. Country A sells that product for $5. Okay, so people are buying and consuming this product within country A. Then country B also produces a product. It produces the same thing or something similar to it. It costs them only $2 to produce the same certain amount of a product. Okay, so it's a lot cheaper for them to produce it. Maybe they have more experience. Maybe their environment is more friendly to producing whatever this product is. And then they are able to sell a product for $4. So they're able to make profit on it the same way the country A is, except they are able to sell it at a lower price. So this is what happens with tariffs. Country A gets imports of a product from country B. Now this causes competition. See, country B imports, or rather exports a product, country A imports it at a cheaper price. So now consumers have an economic choice. They can choose either the foreign import of a product, maybe it's even a little less quality, or maybe it's the same quality, but it's definitely cheaper. So now consumers are allowed to make a choice and put competition on their domestic market, forcing either the country A, the business that produces a product, to either cut costs and lower prices, or to eventually go out of business. So this is what happens. The economic choice would probably drive most people to choose the cheaper import. So, unless they're, loyal to only American-made goods or something like that, but that lower price is pretty convincing. So this is what happens with a tariff. Country B still imports the same amount of a product and it's still cheaper, but then the tariff is introduced. Say, this is just imaginary, this is all imaginary, theoretical, it's not quite this simple, but a tariff is a tax on country B putting their product into country A. Now this tax is on them. Now let's say it's $2 or something like that. A tariff is a tax on foreign imports that is passed onto the consumers through raised prices. So what happens is country B gets the tax for selling its product in country A. Yet, what they do is, instead of just paying the tax and saying, oh, well, I guess we'll just pay it, as that's a cost to the business, is they have to then raise the price. So in this imaginary scenario, now units of a product cost that used to be at a cheaper price are now at a more expensive price because of the tariff. Now this is imaginary. It could be the same price. It could still be less. This is something that they argue makes business fair for domestic businesses, because they can't possibly compete with foreign competitors. But the fact of the matter is, if they can't compete, maybe they shouldn't be competing and using up those resources at all. But now look at where the economic choice is most likely to go. It's most likely to favor the locally made product. Now, who benefits in this? Well, the business and the people working for the business of country A producing producing a product at a more expensive rate, using more resources and being less efficient, they benefit, and a certain sector of the economy benefits. So it kind of chooses winners and losers. But who loses with tariffs? The consumer loses with tariffs. In addition, country B and country B, the business in there, they lose from tariffs because they're able to produce something at a cheaper cost, more efficiently, sell it, import it, and they still lose out because of the tariff. But the consumer ultimately loses. The consumer must pay a higher price. The consumer loses quality, most likely, not always, but if there's no reason to keep the standards high because they are protected from competition outside of themselves, then they don't have to produce something that's high quality if they're the only option that's allowed to sell at a certain lower price. The consumer loses choice, which is key in a free market economy. If you don't have choices between what you can choose, well, that's called a monopoly. But we're often afraid of the word monopoly, yet the government is allowed to grant monopolies through the use of tariffs. And the businesses go right along with it. They're not blameless in this either. They'd rather have the government use force to protect them from having to compete with other businesses. This has been throughout American history for a long time, and history of other countries. The consumer loses potential resources elsewhere. Now think about this. The resources that country A, the business in country A that is producing a product at a more expensive rate than country B is, meaning they're kind of wasting the resources there. They're wasting the resources that could be otherwise used for something else to continue to create that certain product.